The boom mic dipped into frame for the third time that morning. John Wayne didn't stop his line. He kept going, face carved from stone, delivering the words of an aging gunfighter who knew death was coming. The camera rolled. The desert sun through the soundstage windows painted everything gold. 50 crew members held their breath. This take was perfect. Wayne's voice carried that weight. The kind you can't fake, the kind that comes from actually staring death in the face. Then the microphone appeared again, a gray fuzzy shadow at the top of the frame. "Cut!" The word cracked like a whip. Assistant Director Miller threw his clipboard. It clattered across the wooden floor of the saloon set. His face went crimson. His suit, pressed, expensive, the kind worn by men who'd never swung a hammer, looked out of place among the dusty Western props. He was 32. Columbia Film School. 3 years in Hollywood. He wore his authority like cologne. "Are you kidding me?" Miller's voice echoed off the soundstage walls. 3 takes, 3 perfect takes, ruined by the same idiot. Up on the rigging platform, 20 feet above the set, Jimmy Torres froze. The boom pole trembled in his grip. His right hand, the one that held the pole steady, was shaking. Not a little, a lot. He tried to squeeze tighter, but that made it worse. The aluminum pole wavered like a fishing rod with something big on the line. Before we go further into what happened that January morning in 1976, let me ask you something. What's your favorite John Wayne film? Was it True Grit? The Searchers? Maybe one of those old cavalry westerns your dad watched on Saturday afternoons? Drop it in the comments. Let's see which Duke movie still holds up after all these years. Jimmy was 24 years old. He looked younger, baby-faced, with dark hair that fell across his forehead when he sweated. He'd been a lot of things: Marine, rifleman, survivor. He'd come home from Da Nang in 1971 with a Purple Heart, 3 pieces of shrapnel still in his back, and a right hand that shook whenever he got tired or stressed, or remembered things he didn't want to remember. The hand shook a lot. He needed this job. His wife Maria was 7 months pregnant. Their apartment in Van Nuys cost $210 a month. He'd been late on rent twice. This job paid $140 a week. It wasn't much, but it was honest work, and nobody asked questions about the scars or the nightmares or why he sometimes flinched when a truck backfired outside. Now Miller was climbing the ladder to the rigging platform. His dress shoes clanged on the metal rungs. He could smell his cologne, something expensive and sharp. The whole crew watched. Grips, gaffers, script supervisors, the makeup lady. Even Lauren Bacall, Wayne's co-star, stepped out of her mark to see what was happening. Miller's face appeared over the platform edge. "You," he said, "get down here, now." Jimmy's legs felt hollow as he descended the ladder. The boom pole clattered as he set it down. His hands were shaking worse now. He could feel everyone staring. The soundstage was massive, 30,000 square feet of old Hollywood history, but right now it felt like a coffin. When his boots hit the floor, Miller was waiting. "What's your name?" "Jimmy Torres, sir." "Well, Jimmy Torres, do you know how much money you just cost this production?" Jimmy's throat was dry. "No, sir." "Film stock, Wayne's Energy, 50 people standing around. We're already 3 days behind schedule. And you keep shaking that microphone into my shot like you're waving a flag at a parade." A few crew members looked away. One of the grips studied his shoes. "I'm sorry, sir, my hand." "Your hand?" Miller laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. "Your hand doesn't work? Then why are you operating a boom? What, you think this is charity work? You think we hired you because we felt sorry for you?" Jimmy's face burned. He could feel the tears coming. Not here. Not in front of everyone. He bit the inside of his cheek hard enough to taste copper. "You're done," Miller said. "Pack your gear, get off my set. You're useless." The word hung in the air like smoke. Useless. Jimmy had heard that word before, from the VA doctor who said his tremor was service-connected but not disabling, from his father who asked why he couldn't just get over it like men used to, from the guy at the unemployment office who suggested he find something that doesn't require steady hands. He nodded once, couldn't speak. He turned toward the equipment cases stacked against the wall and started gathering his things. The boom pole, the windscreen, the cable wraps. His hands shook so bad he dropped the windscreen twice. Behind him, the set was silent. Then, movement. Everyone had assumed John Wayne was asleep. He'd been sitting in his director's chair off to the side for the last 20 minutes, hat pulled low, eyes closed. At 68, with cancer eating through his stomach, he spent every spare moment conserving energy. The crew had learned to whisper when he rested. But John Wayne wasn't asleep. His chair creaked as he stood, 6'4", still broad across the shoulders despite the illness. He moved like a man walking through deep water, slow, deliberate, fighting invisible current. He wore his costume, dark vest, weathered shirt, the clothes of J.B. Books, the agent gunfighter he was playing. His last role. Everyone on set knew it, even if nobody said it out loud. John Wayne didn't say anything yet. He just walked, crossed the 20 feet between his chair and where Jimmy stood packing his equipment. His boots, those famous boots that had walked through 100 movie gunfights, made soft sounds on the plywood floor. He walked right past Miller without looking at him. Then he stopped beside Jimmy, put one massive hand on the young man's shoulder. The hand was warm and heavy. It felt like an anchor. "Son," John Wayne said quietly, "where'd you get that shake?" Jimmy couldn't look up. His eyes were hot. "Sir, where'd you get it?" The words were gentle but firm, not a question you could dodge. "Da Nang, sir. Marines, 1971. John Wayne's hand tightened on his shoulder. Not hard, just there, present, real. The soundstage was so quiet, you could hear the air conditioning hum. Wayne turned, slowly, until he faced Miller. The assistant director stood 10 feet away, clipboard in hand, expression frozen somewhere between confusion and irritation. Wayne didn't yell. He didn't need to. "This boy," he said, and his voice was low and terrible in its calm, "took shrapnel for your freedom. While you were in college learning about camera angles, he was in the jungle bleeding for this country. And you're gonna stand here on my set, in front of my crew, and call him useless?" Miller's face drained of color. "Mr. Wayne, I didn't know. You didn't ask." Wayne took one step forward. Just one. Miller took 2 steps back. "You didn't ask him why his hand shakes? You didn't ask him if he needed a break. You didn't treat him like a man. You treated him like garbage." Don Siegel, the actual director, stood near the camera. He was a short man with kind eyes who directed Clint Eastwood in Dirty Harry. He'd worked with Wayne before. He knew when to speak and when to let silence do the work. Right now, he was silent. Wayne continued. His voice never rose above conversation level, but it carried to every corner of that soundstage. "I'm sick," he said. "Everyone here knows it. I got maybe 6 months if I'm lucky. I'm tired. I hurt all the time. I want to finish this picture and go home." He paused. "But if this kid walks off my set, I walk too. And Mr. Miller, I don't think you can finish this movie without me, do you?" Miller opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "Do you?" Wayne repeated. "No, sir." "Then here's what's gonna happen." Wayne turned back to Jimmy. The young man was staring at him now, tears on his cheeks, trying to understand what was happening. "You're gonna take 15 minutes. Go splash water on your face, get yourself together, then you're coming back here and you're gonna finish this day, and tomorrow, and every day until we wrap this picture. Understood?" Jimmy nodded, couldn't speak. "And Mr. Miller," Wayne said, not looking at the assistant director, "you're going to apologize to this young man, right now, in front of everyone who heard you humiliate him." The silence stretched like taffy. Miller's jaw worked. His face was red now, not with anger, but with shame. He looked around the set. 50 pairs of eyes stared back at him. Lauren Bacall had her arms crossed. The grip who'd looked at his shoes earlier was looking straight at Miller now. "I apologize," Miller said. His voice was small. "I was out of line." Wayne finally looked at him. "You were. Don't let it happen again." Then Wayne's hand squeezed Jimmy's shoulder once more, and he leaned in close. His breath smelled like the peppermints he sucked on to hide the pain. "You did good over there, son. You did your job. Now you're doing it here. That shake in your hand, that's not weakness. That's proof you stood in the fire. Anyone who can't see that isn't worth your worry." Jimmy nodded. The tears were falling freely now, but But they didn't feel like shame anymore. They felt like something breaking open. Wayne released his shoulder and turned toward his trailer at the edge of the soundstage. He moved slowly, like every step cost him something. Nobody spoke. They watched him go, watched him climb the 3 metal steps to his trailer door. He paused at the top, one hand on the railing, breathing hard. Then he looked back.
"Someone get this man a cup of coffee," he said. "We start shooting again in 20 minutes. The door closed behind him. The soundstage erupted. Not with sound, nobody cheered or clapped, but with movement. 3 people moved toward Jimmy at once. One of the grips clapped him on the back. The script supervisor, a woman in her 50s named Helen, handed him a handkerchief. "It's clean," she said. "Go on." Don Siegel walked over. "Take your time," he said quietly. "We'll reset. You're good, kid." Jimmy walked to the bathroom in a daze, splashed cold water on his face, stared at himself in the mirror. He still looked 24, still looked like someone who didn't belong, but something had shifted. Some weight he'd been carrying since Da Nang, the weight of being broken, of being less than, felt lighter. When he came back to the set, his gear was already set up. Someone had positioned the boom stand for him. The coffee was waiting in a styrofoam cup on the equipment case, steam rising. He picked it up, took a sip. It was terrible, burnt and bitter, but it was warm. 15 minutes later, they were shooting again. This time, Jimmy's hand didn't shake as much. It still trembled. It would always tremble. But it didn't matter. He held that boom pole steady enough. The take was good. Then another take, then another. At the end of the day, as the crew was wrapping, Wayne emerged from his trailer. He looked exhausted, gray, but he stopped by the equipment area where Jimmy was coiling cables. "Walk with me," Wayne said. They walked through the soundstage together. Wayne's stride was slower than it used to be. I'd seen The Searchers and Red River and True Grit. I'd watched this man stride across Monument Valley like he owned the earth. Now he moved carefully, like his body was something he had to negotiate with. "You married?" Wayne asked. "Yes, sir. Wife's pregnant. 7 months. Yeah, boy or girl? Don't know yet." "Either way," Wayne said, "that kid's gonna ask about you someday. About what you did, about who you were." He stopped walking. "You can tell them their dad was a Marine who served his country, or you can tell them their dad let some suit in Hollywood convince him he was useless. Your choice." Jimmy looked at the ground. "Hard some days, sir." "It is." Wayne's voice was quiet. "I know something about pain. The kind that doesn't go away, the kind that wakes you up at night." He tapped his stomach lightly. "This thing in here, it's eating me from the inside out. Doctors can't fix it. Some days I can barely stand, but I still stand." "How?" Jimmy asked. "How do you keep going?" Wayne smiled. It was a sad smile, tired. "Because quitting is easy, and I never did anything easy in my life." He reached out and gripped Jimmy's shoulder again, same spot as before. "That shake in your hand, that's your body remembering what your mind wants to forget. It's not going to go away, but it doesn't define you. You define it." Jimmy nodded. The tears were back, but quieter now. "You finish this picture, then you go home and you hold that baby when it comes, and you teach that kid something your daddy probably taught you, that a man takes care of his people, that he shows up even when it hurts, that he doesn't quit just because some loudmouth in a suit tells him he's not good enough." "Yes, sir." Wayne turned to go, then paused. "Keep that coffee cup," he said. "Something to remember." "Remember what, sir?"
"That you're not useless. You never were." The production wrapped 6 weeks later. Wayne finished his scenes, every one. He'd show up at dawn, gray and weak, and become J.B. Books, the aging gunfighter facing death with dignity. It wasn't just acting, it was prophecy. Wayne died 7 months later, in June 1979. Jimmy Torres finished the film, every day. His hand still shook, but he learned to work around it, learned to brace against his body when he got tired. The other crew members started leaving him coffee in the mornings. Nobody said much about it, they just did it. Miller never apologized again, didn't have to. He stopped yelling at people, stopped throwing clipboards. He worked the rest of the shoot like a man who'd seen something that changed him. Near the end, he approached Jimmy during lunch. "That tremor, Miller said quietly. Is there treatment? The VA's working on it. Gets better some days. Miller nodded. My brother was in Khe-Sanh. He doesn't talk about it. I should have asked. I'm sorry. You said that already. I know, but I meant it more this time. They didn't become friends, but they finished the picture together with mutual respect. That was enough. 40 years later, in 2016, Jimmy Torres was 64 years old. His daughter, the one his wife had been carrying that January, was a teacher in Sacramento. His son was an engineer. Jimmy had worked in Hollywood for 28 years before retiring. Sound department, boom operator, mixer. He never became famous, but he worked steady. A documentary crew tracked him down. They were making a film about Wayne's final picture. They asked if he had any memories from the set. Jimmy invited them into his garage. On a shelf, between old sound equipment and his Marine Corps flag, was a styrofoam coffee cup, yellowed with age, cracked. He'd sealed it in resin to preserve it. Wayne gave me this, Jimmy said. He told them the story, all of it. The shake, the humiliation, the hand on his shoulder, the walk through the soundstage, the advice that had saved his life more than once when things got dark. He told me I wasn't useless, Jimmy said. His hand still trembled as he held the cup. 50 years later, the shake hadn't left. The documentary crew asked what Wayne's intervention meant to him. Jimmy was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "There was a night in 1978, 2 years after we wrapped. I was in a bad place. The shakes were worse. The nightmares were back. I had my service pistol out. I was going to end it." He touched the coffee cup. "Then I remembered what Duke said, that the shake was proof I stood in the fire, that I got to define it, not the other way around. So I put the gun away, called the VA crisis line, started getting real help." He looked at the camera. "John Wayne saved my life twice. Once on that soundstage, when he made me feel like a man again, and once 2 years later, when his words kept me alive enough to get better." The documentary never aired. Budget issues. But the footage exists. Jimmy's testimony, the coffee cup. Proof that one moment of dignity, one refusal to let cruelty win, rippled across decades. We live in a different world now. We've lost a lot. Lost the men who spoke plainly and stood firmly. Lost the generation that understood that strength isn't volume, it's presence. That power isn't dominance, it's protection. John Wayne didn't have to stand up that day. He was dying. He was tired. He had every excuse to let the moment pass, to let some kid get fired, because that's how Hollywood works. But he stood anyway. Because that's what men like him did. They stood between the weak and the wicked. They used their size, physical and otherwise, to shield people who couldn't shield themselves. Jimmy Torres kept that coffee cup for 40 years. He could have thrown it away, could have forgotten, but he didn't, because some moments are too important to forget. Some kindnesses are too rare to let fade. That's the legacy. Not the movies, not the awards. The legacy is the boom operator who didn't die because a cowboy reminded him he mattered. The legacy is the assistant director who learned that authority without empathy is just cruelty with a title. The legacy is everyone on that soundstage who saw what real strength looked like and remembered it the rest of their lives. We don't make men like John Wayne anymore. Maybe we can't. But we can remember what they stood for. We can remember that dignity is something you give, not something you demand. That the measure of a man isn't how loud he can yell, but who he protects when nobody's watching. If this story moved you, if you remember when heroes were real and values weren't just words, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment. What values did John Wayne represent that we're missing today? What lessons from Duke's life do we need to carry forward? Because the Duke's been gone since 1979, but his voice still echoes. And maybe if we listen close enough, we can still hear him reminding us that we're not useless. We never were.